every class, every build thing is just kind of basically a beginner's guide to every class and every role. Since the first decision you make in the game is race, that's going to be the first thing we kind of cover. Just general recommendations. Obviously, you have to pay in order to play every class, every role. You're not looking to do that. You're not going to have this race as a selection, and you'll be limited to these races per faction. These are just general recommendations. I've kind of highlighted what kind of roles I would recommend. It doesn't mean you can't do them. It just means, you know, if you're doing that, if you're using like a Breton for something stamina, an orc for something magicka, that's completely up to you. It's something I've done. Like when my stam, oh shoot, this thing's spinning around. When I've been kind of changing up some of my stuff. If there's like a magicka thing and my stam sork is, you know, my sork and I want to use magic, I wouldn't shy away from like just running him magic. But that's me. I don't really care about me. And then we have kind of just like a leveling guide, kind of where you are. Like first, as soon as you start the game, you should be Sky Shard hunting. Antiquities is kind of new. Looks like I need a comma there. Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, the Sijic line those are all great things to kind of level. You definitely want to hit up delves and public dungeons and kind of do some quests and crafting research. That's definitely something you can start out with. I believe as soon as you get to level 10, you can start queuing for random dungeons. So every new dungeon that you do, extra skill points. So that's definitely something. As soon as you get up to kind of higher CP, that's kind of start running vet dungeons. You can still jump into Cyrodiil starting at level 10, but if you're going to be running Cyrodiil low level, I highly recommend taking advantage of the 50-day Cyrodiil NC, as well as the below 50 battlegrounds. Those are excellent places. I don't really recommend queuing for or doing battlegrounds as a fast way to gain experience, because you only get those bonuses if you. It's kind of high risk, high risk. Yeah, and then kind of starting leveling crafts, crafting sets. Kind of figured 6 crafting sets are kind of best places to kind of start out with. 8 yeah, this one is actually really good because you only need 2 traits in order to craft it, so you're able to. Every skill kind of starts out as magicka. I mean, there are some exceptions. There are definitely they've been changing stuff up to stamina morphs, but for the most part, the large majority of skills are cosmetic. So Seducers is an excellent set to kind of run because it's a constant reduction. Willow's Path has got a flat percentage of resources, and Shacklebreaker is kind of split, gives you resources. These two, Hunting's Rage is more stamina set, and Love Julianus is more. But these are all craftable training sets that you can. But we're going to go into the different classes and skills here. See here that with Fighters Guild, kind of have recommendations. Alti is pretty good. Silver Leash is pretty awesome. Like stamina. Circle of Protection Guild. It's an 8. Fear, it also gives you some regen. Oop, crazy there. And Camouflage Hunter helps you get Minor Berserk, so that's definitely something to kind of stam tunes. Don't really recommend these because these are more single target, but those are also also note that every time all the for every Fighters Guild line on your. So it's an X. Your numbers. Also, you gain ultimate killing werewolves. Let's have Mage's Guild. Just note that for each Mage's Guild ability that you have on your get extra stimuli coverage. So this Ice Comet, one generates ultimate, the other one stuns. Both are really great. I kind of like the stun generator. That's me. Inner Light, if you have that on your bar, it helps get your crit, but more importantly, this is slotted. Not only for Mage's Guild bonuses, oops, touching that button. But also from the skill itself. The skill itself actually increases it. If you are looking for a Source of Mage or Sorcery, this is a single target, but it does increase your spell damage. Sorcery. Yet. I've only recently started using this, but it does knock people. It's a stun, so it's definitely takes. If you're looking for some protection buff, Balance is a pretty place to go. And on the Undaunted Guild, this has a really good synergy, and it does. So it's I don't really recommend. They do have synergies for dots and few. It's just really put them in recommendations. Spike Bone Shield. Recommendations. It's an awesome synergy. Just heal. Also for healers, it's a nice synergy. Also heal. Definitely want to note that there are passives in the Undaunted that help increase your resources. Like, passive that gives you synergy. This is your synergy sources. Also, Sigic Order just came out with that. Having ultimate bar helps give you some passes, which are reversing some time. That'll help you get some resources. Time stop, which both of those actually. Elemental Weapon. I haven't really put this into any. It's an excellent way. Stamina. Race Against Time. Skill that'll kind of break free and keep moving. So that one's a pretty solid stamina. I don't really recommend. Then we're gonna go to the melee weapons, kind of stuff that's just kind of up in your stamina. You'll notice that on the Sword and Shield, I do recommend it, and I also recommend the dual. These are just because having extra defense, stance, and so it's good to have a little bit more. So the quick cloak, you get major evasion or major expedition. So it's kind of ability. But in these cases, these would just be like back bars, obviously. These are places where you can gain those passives. Might actually kind of. But with Sword and Shield, piercing armor, it's only single target. I don't really recommend anything, but If you're looking to apply Major Fracture and Major Breach, that's definitely. Low Slash applies a snare. Slash. Both of those are really great. Also single target, which is why I kind of recommend the Slash over the Heroic, just because it's more targets and it's snared. There are other ways to generate. Defensive stance just increases damage, and absorb missile turns any into self-heal. Shield assault. I don't really recommend gap closers just because they're sometimes unreliable, but for the most part, sometimes find yourself gap closing yourself out of it. So they're. Try not to recommend. I mean, I'm not saying you gotta have some recommendations. Same thing with reverbing Ash. Kind of like some of these. Played around with them a little bit here and there, but once again, not really recommend. The dual weapons, I don't recommend ulti, but I do recommend Rending Slash. That's it's a snare, which is awesome. Whirlwind Blades is also another recommendation. It's an execute, and it's an AoE execute. Its radius is Deadly Cloak. Major Evasion is a great buff to have that I recommend both of the edge of the A to run away. Shrouded Dagger. It's kind of I recommend just because Flying Blade, that gap closer. Shrouded Daggers. It's additional. So. Also remember, guys, I do recommend DPS, all DPS, including magic, just for the passive where swords increase damage done. So if you're looking to increase your number, consider having swords on your Destro. Otherwise, I would kind of stick to stamina. Two-handed, this one's definitely great. Dizzying Swing sets enemies off balance, and so off balance, stunned. If they're unbalanced, then they're snared. So there's a good amount of sets that require you to set someone off balance, and then it marks your set to increase. So in that case, I would definitely recommend this one. Sets. I don't really recommend this for group play just because it's single target. But the gap closer, this is like the one gap closer I kind of recommend. Just because when you hit the target, it creates a. That's different. With Cleave, both Carve and Bow. Had a dot from Carve. Awesome. And with Brawler, gain a little shield. With Reverse Slash, it is a single target, but with Reverse Slash, with Reverse Slash, it does hit additional targets, which is awesome. And the increase in damage of Executioner also makes it a definite recommendation. Something that I've been using. This Lord Momentum, I definitely recommend. I do mention Rally because it does give you, which is great, but the immunity to snares is key. Down to range weapons. Now the bow is the only stamina range. Might be skills that are ranged like with the Cool Wield, but for the most part, this is the only stamina. I don't recommend the ulti with this particular class. Skill. Lethal Arrow and Focused Aim, both of them are great applying Minor Defile, and the other one from applying Minor Fracture. I just don't really recommend them as they're single turn. I don't really use Arrow Barrage, but the other morph just increases the time because of the ability. It's much better to have a larger Agnum Knockback. There are a lot of other snares. I would recommend this in some cases, but it's only single target. With Spray or Bombard or Acid Spray, Bombard applies as a cone, so that one case is kind of the preferred cone. With Poison Injection, it's a great execute. It's the only execute. So if you were going to replace any other executes and you want ranged execute, with the Destruction Staff, it really depends on what kind of Destruction Staff you your staff, staff. Each one of them kind of have. Each of them has a Fire Staff and a Lightning Staff, and with Ice Staff, actually. So you can see how that would be applied for stamina. Eye of Storm is actually an ulti. It basically casts it on yourself so that you become which is with your opponent's kind of movement. With Force Pulse, it's additional targets if it status tied to it, which is awesome. It is single target, but when it's splash damage, it's from that. It's definitely kind of a pretty solid single target team. Wall of Elements. I had at one point only recommended Unstable Wall because I thought the additional effects, that one was corrected. I guess there was a change. So each of these are pretty great. I would kind of recommend Unstable extra damage. And size. Actually, put the tank here. Destructive Clutch. It's a damage over time. But you get that initial hit. Each of your different staffs does different things. Fire staffs do knockback. Ice staffs immobilize, and light staffs set off balance. Destructive Reach, it just increases. Doesn't have the additional effects, so. Also on there is Elemental Supremacy. It just increases the action and applies. I don't use these in any of the builds just because there's some AoEs that are doing this as well. Plus it's single target, so you only get to apply it to one person at a time. Even if it or if you apply it on spending time, it's rather than actually doing it. With Pulsar, it's a AoE around yourself and it applies Mind, which reduces health. It's a great thing. Greatly uses low and kind of apply some of it. With Resto staffs, I definitely recommend Lustrous Healing over Healing Springs at the moment, just because of the just better to have kind of stronger heal. That one. Both with regen, rapid regen and gen, both of them are great. One heals faster and one targets. I kind of recommend the one targets. You'll see a lot, just because it's a solid heal. It's gonna kind of bounce around. There's Combat Prayer. It's AoE burst heal. It also applies Minor Berserk and Minor Resist. That's something that I'm going to be recommending. Almost all Magicka DPS. Oops, I got. Okay, we're gonna have to log back in there in a second, but let's keep going here. And what is it? Ward Ally. That one you cast on yourself and an ally. So I would definitely recommend that. I don't have that in me. It's definitely. Force Siphon, I don't really recommend these. My Lifesteal, my Expedition, Steel. Those are, I guess, they're not really skills I would recommend. Not to say that they can't be used, once again. As far as world skills, I'm going to wait until after Greymoor drops before I really touch on skills. I did like Mesmerize, both Stupefy and Hypnotize were pretty solid. Same thing with Elusive Mist. I was kind of at Blood Mist. I'm not so much sure, but once again, I'm gonna wait for these changes to come in official before I really kind of make any comments or. I don't have either Vampire or Werewolf in any of my build. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use them. I use them all. It's just that to have stuff set up separate from that, so that you can then come in, then introduce these things. For instance, almost all of my stamina characters, both Pack Leader and Berserk. So you with this usually work just for damage and the cone attacks. Cone AoE still. Increased damage of Brutal Pounce is pretty good, but I like the. It's a great way to kind of stay where extended period of time. It is a gap closer, so it can sometimes kind of bug you out or like out a little bit, but it's not shit. For Piercing's Rage, this kind of recommend this buff over the other one. I don't even mention the other one because this one increases your weapon damage. So you're going to be kind of focused more stamina. Kind of jumping. Defending Roar applies major fracture. That is also, I believe, it's the fear. Gotta add that. But that fears, so that's pretty solid. The Howl of Despair has a synergy which increases attack, so definitely gonna recommend that. And Claw of Anguish applies Major Defile, some damage. That one, this is the skill that it's one of those skills that's really gonna bring down of your opponents and so. Once again, with the Vampire, really try to stay focused on Magicka with that, but we're going to go back and have some recommendations official, so it's coming up. And then you have Soul Magic, they have the ulti there, and it's interesting. It's definitely stuff you can kind of play around with, but I don't recommend same thing with Soul Splitting. Consuming Trap. Inside passives. There's some miscellaneous passives. So they increase the potions so that they last longer. So they last longer. Passives. Now with the Alliance skill, in here we kind of have, I kind of consider this more like the DPS. Rapids, increasing expedition. Both of these are solid ones. Kind of recommend both. If you already have minor expedition, I would definitely go with retreating. There are only 2 classes that get that, so I would take a look at using charging this way. Which is great. Echoing Vigor. It's a group heal. It's a stamina group heal. It's like stamina. So in the game. Definitely. Other morph, it just becomes a self heal and then stronger self heal. And if you're if you're really you need those self heal, kind of shiny. The group aspect of preferred. Caltrops, every stamina. Applies major nature and it's an hail. Slows, so it's definitely one of the skills that you see on stamina. Kind of save time. Oxy Detonation. It's an AoE burst damage coming on itself, so you just hit it. The alternate always triggers and it's purged. It's been kind of a recommendation that you kind of stick with this one. It's used a lot, and I believe I used it in Magicka builds. It does do time properly. I do recommend with Warhorn. That is a pretty solid buff. I just don't recommend it. Replenishing Barrier, both, and Reviving Barrier support. I really only recommend healers if you class doesn't have some. Reviving adds an extra hot at the end. Finishing turns. Both of those are great directions to go to. Kind of decide on there. Siege Weapon. This is Siege Weapon Shield. The Propelling Shield, the added range from that is awesome, but the reduced damage gives us Siege Weapon Shield. Kind of one. With Purge, just every Magicka build that I have will have this on there. Effects, extremely effective in seeing damage done. For the most part, I do mention cleanse because a lot of healers swear by it. I just think that reduction of cost makes it far better. If you're going to be dealing, you should be using other abilities, not spill it. The increased cost of it, healers are just going to start complaining. Sources if they have to constantly cleanse. Efficient Purge is Efficient Purge is our actual recommend. With Guard, this one it just helps mitigate damage from target T2. I don't really recommend this because it's really a small group, or not really. With Lingering Flare, this is a good ability to bring out people with stealth, but a lot of times we're not really engaging fights. stealth combat. Or stealth isn't so much of an issue where this doesn't really recommend. Going down to Dragon Knights. So now we're on to Dragon Knights, and we'll go bars. Shifting Standard. I don't even recommend, or I don't even mention the other ulti here, just because a ulti like this, which has a synergy that applies Major Defile, just makes this one recommendation for that skill. This Flame Lash, Lava Whip, I kind of like this one as well because it increases done to all off-balance targets. Venomous Claw is an excellent dot, single target. Burning Embers is Magicka more with Breath of Fire. Engulfing Flames is kind of recommended for Magicka DPS. Should probably change that up. But with Noxious Breath, it is a class ability that does do cone damage that applies Major Fracture. That's huge. And where Major Fracture is definitely drop some of the resistance. So that's good skill to kind of use standard. Unrelenting Grip. It pulls the target to you, and if it doesn't, it returns the cost. So that's great for any any or Magicka DPS or tank in general. Also, Flames of Oblivion. This gives you Major Prophecy and Scavenger slotted. Also gives you a little dot DPS there. Just kind of hovers around. Don't really recommend that one, even though it's one of the kind of used occasionally. Conic Power. Take Flight. Both Take Flight and Sleep. So I definitely use them, and as a Dragon Knight, you're gonna put them on your bar. I just don't recommend them for play because it's a gap closer and it's single target, and Shifting Standard is definitely far more tool. Ability. Definitely preferred. Spiked Armor. Both armor are pretty great. Volatile Armor gives you resilience, so some aid. So I don't really recommend those for just about any. Hardened Armor does give you an extra damage shield. So if you're looking to tank a little bit more, kind of. Dark Talents. Both of these are great kind of CCs. There is an A on you. It locks people down. It also gives a synergy. If you are a Magicka DPS, you're definitely going to go for Burning Talons or any other Choking Talon. It's probably it's going to apply mine. Burning Talons just does fire damage, so it's more toward Magicka. Green Blood gives you increased stamina. Again, also, this kind of gives you all three of these: your fortitude, endurance, and virtue. And Cognitive Blood will just increased self heal. Both of these are great as far as self heals. Recommend stamina. With Protective Plate, this is kind of the one I kind of recommend over the Dragonfire Scale, just because of the movability or in snares. There's only skills that allow you to do that, and this is the last skill that allows you to do that. So it's definitely something that Knights can kind of show a little bit of right. Dragon Scale returns the damage, fire damage, so you definitely kind of want to kind of fun damage. I would recommend. Good builds. Deep Breath. It interrupts any enemy casting, so that one's definitely a good one to have. It does heals and also does fire damage as burst damage. I highly recommend every class. Earthen Heart, I didn't really want to recommend Corrosive Armor to begin with, just because of Shifting Standard and how great that was. But you can't ignore direct damage ignores physical resistance. That really kind of shifts the direction towards not needing to apply or just all your physics going straight through. That in itself, that's a recommendation for that. I still highly recommend our stamina to Shifting Standard, but I can't. With Stonefist, the skill line in the Stone Giant, that's in chain. And I am not too effects of Stagger, but as far as like an AoE, Stagger, definitely something. Stamina, or any type of Oblivion Shard, it's nice, but I think we're definitely good. With Igneous Weapons, it applies both Major Sorcery and Major Brutality. I highly recommend this because it's a group buff, so everybody, some people get that buff. Molten Armament. I really only recommend that one for some Magicka DPS because it increases your damage of and also only gives you Major Sorcery. It is a group buff, but in this case, not everybody in the group. So the only reason to really do that is if you're trying to increase the numbers of your... That's your full heavy attacks, not like your half heavy attacks. Igneous Shield and Fragmentic Shield. These are buffs. I really recommend the Fragmented Shield. It's the buff, the Major Mending buff lasts a little bit longer. But the Igneous Shield, it's a damage shield somehow. So yeah, the fact that this applies Major, it's gonna, and is a group buff, so it gives everybody around well, is great for not only a healer but as a support. Fossilize, these are both single target. I don't really, but if you're going to use one, I highly recommend stuns. Stuns. The other one has a stun and their next heal or next attack. That's interesting, but it's not something I would really. Cinder Cloud, it reduces speed and heals. I don't really recommend it as far as like a heal. It is a great CC as it reaches the highest reductions in move speed as far as skills go. But I do recommend Eruption, which does a little bit more flame damage, and even as a tank, you're still gonna be damaged. The increased damage is better than just a little. So here are Dragonite bars. Remember, this is kind of in the beginning. I have a lot of skills that I kind of want to throw in there. I kind of didn't. I gonna try to add more skills for different classes. But for the most part, you can kind of see here, we're going to be sticking with a lot of standards, just because it makes it a lot easier down the road. It's like I didn't, or now that I think about it, I didn't have two Destro alts, but strong Destro alt is kind of good to have. Also note that for Magicka, both Magicka S and tanks, the front bar is a Destro staff, and bottom bar is a Resto staff. It might be against some people's mentality to kind of put a Resto staff on DPS, but as far as I'm concerned, having self heals as well as being able to apply Minor Berserk on your back bar is just a solid way to kind of so with those standards, almost all of them are going to have Purge, Combat Prayer, those are, and as well as Proxy Deck, kind of skills that I try to keep. And with Stamina, all Stamina, I put two-handed weapons all on their front bar, except for the tanks. I sometimes Sword and Shield, and I also put bow on the back bar. You can change these up, use sword or dual wield sword and board, kind of placing stuff around. Just note that I just kind of kept these consistent because number one, the bow is the only stamina weapon game. And the two-handed weapon is of forward momentum. It's greatly is a great use kind of throughout. Plus, it also has a cone DPS, execute. Just note that if you do switch out, just make sure that you sing in execute, cone damage. Or a buff with a buff or somewhere. So just kind of keep that in mind. Flame Whip, Path, Talent. So you can see here. Purge, Combat Prayer. Additional buffs. This is the one time where you don't need it's against time because you have a skill that. Here down in Stamina, for Stamina DPS, you have that giant to create stagger. You've got a nice AoE, does make fracture, execute in there. Caltrops, that's also going to do an AoE and fracture. Got a self heal. You don't technically have to use this one. You can kind of swap it out here, but at least with this one, you get your stamina and a cone. I'm gonna use this a lot, but remember, guys, you can go back and you can swap out bow with whatever preferred. This is just to give you guys a place to start, and then group buff there. See how I have shifting standard on every one. Yes, I kind of went offensive with it. And with tanks, we have Giant Fist. I'm using Silver Leash just because it's a stamina-based pull, and it's been more reliable. And here from the Fighters Guild, so just your stamina DKs, tanks, just like everybody. Caltrops, which is gonna fracture. That's what you're doing as a stamina. You're just buffing and I did put rapids in here, but Bone Pirate, since as a DK you're kind of more, it's throwing out the extra buffs, especially with that synergy. Self heal, it's great. Once again, using the same, taking advantage of the same skills here. Shifting standard. Magicka DK, you're definitely going to be kind of seeing here. We should probably put Ignis. It's because of this as we get. I'm not against using rats with at least against time or active plate. It's just I kind of just because it's a class skill. It's always great to use class skills. In this case, we are getting major balance. This is mainly because we're trying to take it healing and your ability to just kind of stand or more. Still sticking with weapons because that's a great buff. Every it's gonna have one. The extra heal here, and then you know you have your Magicka interrupt here. Down CCs. Right here, you go that place of ruin. So you're really gonna be able to kind of take advantage. These skills here. With a healer, you're going to be using Ignis shield quite a bit, just because of Ignis shield or Fragmented shield. This one's Fragmented shield. Just because of the major men. You're not going to have, or it's really going to increase your healing numbers. A lot of the skills within the K line self heals, so you're really going to be skill line. It's like the Resto, Lustrous Streams, the Rapid Regen, the orbs from the Undaunted, and the little cup. DKs are also tanky, so a lot of times being a heavy armor tank, solid. You can see here that I still have Shifting Standard as ulti. This ulti is still worth having, but if you're looking for another heal, that's kind of what I jumped into the support. Use that support. Siege Shield here and Purge. These two are going to be solid skills, especially in your Siege Hammer. Keep it high. So now, moving on to Necromancers. With a persistent with Gravelord, both of these AoEs are great ultis. They're going to be on almost every build. I would even recommend them almost for. I would almost recommend for support as well, just because of the flying ability and also stun. Like both of these are solid kind of recommendations for. Venom Skull is an extra is a single target, so I don't really recommend that. Same thing, Ricochet Scroll, even it's additional targets. That's with a Destruction skill on your Force Pulse instead of that one. Because, yeah, stuff. Not to say you can't, just, gotta have it. The Blast Bones, I really only recommend the Stamina Morph, mainly because of Major Defile. Still single target, it can be unreliable. I'm not saying that definitely aren't be used, it's just that there are other skills that we could definitely prioritize. One being Boneyard, Unnerving Boneyard. It's a AoE that applies Major Breach and Major Fracture. It's the only skill in the game that is an AoE that applies both of these. In most cases, the only other class that actually has an AoE breach would be Wardens. But in that case, it's just Major Breach. This AoE applies them both. So that's going to be recommended for almost every class for Necromancers. With Skeletal Mage, both the Stamina and the Magicka, these are combat pets. The Stamina does a physical dot, and Skeleton shock damage and hits additional targets. I don't really recommend these. They're definitely fun. I have used them, and you'll notice that, especially when you're playing with Necromancers, that you want to use almost all Necromancer skills, and you will not have enough room for all of the skills. It's just that we all. Which is why I don't really recommend these. But I would note that having a combat pet for Necromancers does increase resources. So if you don't use my recommendation later on with the Offensive Mender, you might want to go over here. Still have a combat pet going. With Shocking Siphon, this one kind of takes advantage of corpses. One increases one returns Magicka damage and does shock damage, and the other one does disease damage. Obviously, you would kind of change these to your respective Magicka or Stamina DPS, but I would definitely consider only putting these on if you don't have something that consumes corpses. You don't want to have too many skills on your bars that consume corpses, because then you're going to be limited, or you'll be limited to how useful that particular skill is. Also, it's not always going to be, there aren't always going to be corpses on the ground in combat, so that's something to consider. But I do recommend them just because they do increase your damage done while slotted. Excuse me. On the Bone Tyrant, I do not really recommend the ultis up here. These are kind of more for like niche builds. One kind of be better for tanks, the other one kind of be stamina tanks. We're just gonna kind of talk about that a little bit and then move on. So let's move on. With the Death Scythe, Ruinous Scythe, it is a cone attack and it does do physical damage and does set. So that one's definitely a skill to. Same thing with the Hungry Scythe is Scythe. That one's great for Magicka damage, just because it does do Magicka damage. It is a cone. It does do a time. So be a little bit easier to kind of. As far as armor goes, Major Resolve, Beckoning Armor, pulls people that are any range targets that hit you. That one's a pretty solid one to kind of use, not just as a PS, but as a support or as a tank. And then Summoner Armor also gives you Major Resolve and reduces your class skills. I don't really recommend this one just because as soon as you're using this, you're probably either a healer or you don't want to have objects being pulled to you, in which case you're probably not stamina, and balance will apply Major Resolve and return Magicka to you, as well as apply minor or major defile to you, which is a debuff, which actually increases your heals. So step away from Summoners. Not to say that the reduction in cost of skill cost is good. Definitely want Necros. Dead in Pain, while slotted, reduces damage taken. It also generates ulti and gives you major protection. recall how many times I use this skill on the bars. It's definitely a solid one, kind of happy. The Necropotence, I don't really recommend this one just because of the major protection that you get from. You're gonna have that skill. Plus the extra ulti generated is great if you're trying to use your ultis a lot, but as far as Bone Tyrant goes, I'm still on the Agony Totem recommendation. Now, Remote Totem doesn't give you the synergy that applies minor vulnerability, but it is a ranged AoE. So, in that sense, definitely Agony Totem doesn't really get to take the pedestal, just because of the value of AoE. Once again, the Agony Totem kind of casts on yourself, but the synergy that applies might worth not having. With Grave Grift, I really only recommend these for tank, just because there's Empower. Combat pets are stronger with Empowering Grip, but with the Ghostly Embrace, it has a chance to. Both really great. I probably need to test this one a little. Try to check that one. Living Death. Any animation or no animation. It resurrects your allies, restores magicka. Kind of recommended for just about everybody. The only reason to use animated blast bones is if you're a DPS and to have some blast bones direct. These I kind of are high. With Render Flesh, it's a single target self-heal that applies minor to follow yourself. Either one of these, I mean, it is a class self-heal, but there are other sources of self-heal, so I don't really recommend this one. You can definitely use it in some cases, but for this one, there's definitely... Not to say that won't change it. With Hexproof, I really recommend Hexproof just because it removes negative effects and it reduces ability costs. While the return of magicka and stamina is still kind of kept expunge on the board. It's just I kind of recommend. With Life Amid Death, Renewal on Death is heal over time that removes negative effects, and also while slotted. This is check that out shorter, but that is definitely something to support. The removal of negative effects kind of really puts this one above. Recommendation for PvP. With the Guardian Spirit, the transfer of damage is good, especially if you're trying to tank, but the increased heals from the Mender is kind of becomes my recommendation. It lasts about half as long, but having more heals over whatever period that you need to cast that definitely helps in a lot. And with Braided Tether, while that's on your bar, it's going to be tricky, which all do you do. It's just that Mortal Coil returns the AoE heal that you get from the Braided isn't present on it. So that's kind of like Braided Tether better. With those being said, see here with Magicka DPS source your prophecy and there are other recommendations here as well as to put in. See that I put Purge on here. it's a group buff, and Magicka, so we kind of steer towards that, but you can always use Hexproof. Kind of as far as like a burst heal, we kind of still stay with Combat Prayer just because Berserk. Agony Totem, that's pretty solid, and with stamina, you can still use the Necro Major Resolve, but you can see here that balance in the turn. And also, you may have to do this, but just kind of swap these two skills here so that your front bar has Magicka, because your total magic actually increased to Mage's skill on balance. Now with Magicka tanks, once again, Boneyard, it's a heal, the Sith, have them there. You become a little bit more of a healer in this case, but you can see that any yes has kind of been removed. Sith, it's kind of more interrupting and focusing. You'll also notice that I use Colossus. The res alt. I did use Boneyards for both of the S lines, but regardless, being able to res multiple as far as alt, so it's an instant, and definitely a great backup. Colossus as having that there is really going to help you out. And you can, so over here, stamina DPS, we have stamina so I did put Caltrops in here, although I would, you could put Unrelenting Boneyard. It's just that this is a larger aid. It's applying Fracture, it doesn't apply Mage Breach. The Magicka cost of this, plus your other abilities, is really why I kind of steered towards having Caltrops, just because of the resource and kind of direction of stamina in general. It's better to have all your resources in. But for the most part, I usually use skill. On the back bar, there is just so many Necro abilities that I wanted to put on here that we actually took the bow ability off and put the file. You can see here that we're using Vigor, as a self-heal. That's just going to be a consistent theme, and once there's a better heal, better stamina heal for stamina. And the Beckoning Armor, so any have a lot of this is going to give your Berserk, this is going to be ornament, it's going to weapon damage, and this is an execute. Now as far as like a stamina tank, you're still going to want to be throwing out blast bones because of that major file. This is going to pull them in, so a lot of what you're going to be doing is kind of bringing people in. This is also going to help you. You've got a fear. We're using the totem here for the fear rather than turn evil, as well as caltrops rather than the boneyards. Depending on how you set up, you might want to switch these, especially if you're able to have cost reduction, just the type of regen. Shield kind of gives you the same. It gives you an buff as synergy. Did use Dead and Pain to increase our ulti generation, as well as give us major protection and reduce our magic dama. So this is, you're able to apply major file, fear, buff your bar, as well as a new applies. Urge yourself. Holy. I mean, gain so that you continue to either stun. This is a stun. Let's see here. No, yeah. Major vulnerable. By major. And on the Magicka side, to this, the healers you have. Second aid. Rated healer, which increases gun while bar. It's also corpses, so you'll be able to proc that eternity. Then you can have your spirit on your back bar. We kind of use balanced back here as well as it's against time, so that you have mobility. We have the Magicka ulti here, just to increase the Magicka gen on, and as well as Purge and Orbs. Skills can come. Alright, now into Nightblades. With Nightblades, Assassin, this has a nice stun, but the passives and the Major Defile from Soul Harvest, really kind of want to use this kind of back bar skill. It's single target, so Soul Tether is going to be this class, but this is pretty solid skill back bar. Help regen or multi-gen, and just for those moments, like. As far as ranged executes, there aren't very many in game, but because of the execute range low on this particular skill at 25%, I don't recommend it for executes. It's still a solid ranged execute, and as far as Magicka executes, there aren't very many. This is actually no, it's another one. This one is solid. Go with, as well as killer, but I don't really recommend it. Teleport is a gap closer. Ambush apply. Minor ambush, which does the minor AoE as well, but gives you power. Those are also pretty solid gap closers. I just don't recommend them because they're awesome. Phantom Escape. I kind of recommend this one over Mirage, just because of the snare and Piercing Mark, single target. Don't really recommend it. It does apply major fracture and major breach, but it's just one target. Piercing increases the duration. Reaper's Mark, if you are going to use it, use this one, because this one will... Relentless Force. At one time I would have recommended these, but since it got nerfed, it is a great single target ability. It just takes a while to build light attacks, but since it's single target, this Shadow, bolstering darkness. Both of these ults give you a synergy so that you can become invincible. One of the Veil of Blades, just it's heal, but bolstering darkness. Oh wait, it also applies a dot to any enemy. Veiled Blades applies a dot to area. From darkness, it just has a protection. with Veiled Strike. I actually kind of recommend both of these for stamina. The stamina one, it reduces physical resistance as well as sets off balance, and Magicka more does much. It increases your movement speed and stuff. Shadowy Disguise helps you become invisible. It's like one of the only skills like that in the game. Dark Cloak just heals more, applies more protection. Both of these are great. I just kind of recommend Shadowy because being invisible is awesome. Twisted Path. This just creates an AoE. Really only recommend this for stamina, Magicka's PS. But Refreshing Path, going to be a healer, a manipulated healer. You're probably going to want to have this on your bar because it's an AoE skill that also applies to your expedition. As far with Aspect of Terror, we mentioned we still keep Manifestation of Terror because it's an AoE and it's a ground effect and you're set up traps, so in a sense it is a ranged AoE. But advantages of targets around you. It's Mass Hysteria recommendation here. Dark Shade and Shadow Image don't really recommend because they're single target. That use. Soul Tether is an AoE that stuns as well as a single target shot. This is kind of recommended for any. Just because of the stun and Funnel Health and Soul Swallow. These are both single targets that don't really recommend them. Healing Offspring is a skill that gives you minor ending in a cone that hits in front of you. That one would be recommended. Deliberant and Crippling Grip. Both are single target. Big damage, reducing speed, mobilizing. I don't really recommend these because they're single target. Siphoning Strikes. This increases adds onto your light and heavy attacks and returns magic and health or stamina, just depending whichever. Don't really recommend. Power Extraction is an AoE buff that applies disease damage and gives you major brute sorcery. Sap Essence is Magicka version of that. So both major brutality, major sorcery. To increase your mana. As far as Nightblade bars go, Magicka DPS, kind of see here. Spell damage, a nice AoE, single target. Other single targets from the class, I just kind of recommend Soul. Second thoughts, and kind of recommend that. The Fear, balance to give you Resolve, and Resolve, or any ability here with skill. Let's say this skill. Or Escape. Oxy Debt, Inner Berserk, Self-Heal, Purge, Soul Tether, Soul Harvest. Soul Harvest. Now, with Magicka tanks, you self-heal, still have Essence, with pulse, and you have a root drug. So have much of the back bar is similar, except for rats doesn't need to be on there. You can probably swip that out. Shadowy disguise. Healer, yeah. This is kind of untested, but this is kind of a bar. Kind of going into this. Once again, swap some disguise out. Still have experience. So, a minor mending as well. So, still good stuff. Stamina DPS. On our front bar, we have execute, cone dot, and a single target that will reduce physical damage. AoE give major brutality, Caltrops, which will give you fracture, here, a self heal, and also do your expedition, which is damage done. Still using Soul Tether and still using single turn. With a stamina tank, kind of all the same, except for instead of fear, we might turn evil and kind of get a little bit defense here on that front bar. Still all the same kind of skills on the back. Silver Leash from the Fighters Guild to be pulling people. Right. Orcs. I really for max running and fighting, whichever you want. That's what I recommend. That is, but we'll continue here. But with Sorks, we have Absorption Field. I kind of recommend Absorption Field over Suppression Field just because a healing negate won't show a red circle, so it'll be harder to identify, which is what I kind of recommend that across the board. If you are going to run Suppression Field, you really only reason to do that is if you are already a Magicka DPS and you're Crystal Blast. This is a single target. It does stun, and one morph gives you a free cast. But it does have a cast time and it's single target, so I do not recommend. So Crystal Blast is something that kind of mess around good time. Shattering Prism and Restraining Prism, both are kind of recommended. One where the immovable lasts longer, and one where Magicka damaged. Restraining Prism will also apply your ability to yourself and last longer, so we kind of recommend that. The other one. Ruin Cage is a single target. Defensive Rune is a buff. Enemy attacks stuns enemy. So I guess any time an enemy attacks them, they get stunned. There's got to be some kind of cooldown for that. It's not a bad ability to have in your bar. It's just not something down there. Dark Exchange. Return stamina and health. This one's definitely good for stamina. Stamina, yes, and stamina. It's the opposite. Dark Conversion is good for any mana. The Dark Conversion costs stamina, and Dark Deal costs Magicka, but the return of stamina, return of Magicka is why you direct yourself. As far as like the Daedric Tomb, Daedric Monk, kind of recommend Daedric Monk, just because of the circles there are more mines, but they're all around you. It creates like a large area. At one point, I was going to say that Negate is my only recommendation, but after reviewing the Daedric Summoning ulti, and the fact that there is a synergy that allows you to get Major Berserk, I kind of recommend both of these as like a secondary. The Summon Guard Acronaut does more, so if you're looking an ulti DS, look at Summon Charge Acronaut. Great Storm. As far as pets go, the Summon Unstable Clayflor just newly became an AoE or a stamina pet that heals. It's a great self-heal. I just don't really recommend it to play because the damage doesn't seem to be too much, and it doesn't. There are other avenues that you can go. Plus testing, it's relatively new, so I can't fully back this until I've seen it used in the field, but it is definitely a skill if you're for more small man or solo play to have on your stamps work, just because the self-heal is very solid. The Summon Volatile Familiar isn't a shock and is also an AoE stun at the end. That's why we kind of recommend that one. Doors, Chica DPS or tanks. Daedric Play, this is or Haunting Curse. These are single target dots. Don't really recommend them because they're target. Does do magicka damage, and Daedric Prey, your pet will do damage. With the Twilight, both of these pets, if you were going to use them, they do have their different purposes. The Summon Twilight increases the damage done to high health targets. I think it's the only one of the either the only skill or one of the only skills / sets that does this. But you're definitely going to want to use that as more a DPS setup. And Summon Twilight Matriarch, it heals additional targets, so that's a great one. Kind of have as a healing skill. Just note that each of these pets have to be on both your front and your back bar, otherwise they are dismissed as soon as you switch bars. So just keep that in considering pets with. I did not use Conjuring Ward in any of my builds, but it is a solid damage buff. One gives you minor intellect and shield, and the other just a stronger shield. Damage buffs. Bound Arguments increases your physical damage and increases your total stamina. And it's also, I believe, a ranged attack. I kind of messed around with this a little bit, and it is kind of good to have front bar. So there's no stamina. Bound Arguments, or Ages, Bound Ages, gives you minor resolve, increases your magicka, and gives you block mitigation. So it's solid to have for any magicka or just plain take build. Storm Calling, since they've nerfed this and no longer allows you to access your third bar, I really don't recommend this. It's a nice concept, but the other altis really kind of overshadow this one, its current state. So we're just not really going to address those right now. Mage's Wrath, I kind of recommend this one over the other ones because of its execute, and it hits additional targets. Additional targets, that's always good. The other morph returns magicka, and that's okay, but it's not that deal. Hurricane, great major resolve buff, is also an AoE for stamina tunes, stamina characters. Boundless Storm is great for magicka characters. Gives both of these, or the Boundless Storm gives you Major Expedition, while Hurricane gives you Expedition. Lightning Flood I kind of recommend this one just because it allows you to give you synergy, increases damage. The other morph increases time, and we don't do that so much in PvP because opponent players don't stand in AoEs very long. So the added time just really wouldn't happen. Power Surge. Both of these are kind of recommended. One for because it heals allies, and the other one because it kind of heals you. Both gives you major brutality and sorcery, but those are pretty solid. Both Streak and Lightning Ball are great. We focus more on Streak here because of the stuns that you get from it. They'll definitely be perfect. Now, as far as builds go, here are Sorcerer. We have an Execute Mage Wrath. We have that out there. I do have Crystal Blast up here, but Force Pulse was good, a little bit better. Crit Charge, Inner Light to increase your numbers. And on the back bar, we have Purge, Combat Prayer for buff, Proxy Debt, Boundless Storm, Lightning, as well as Suppression Field as your. This is a good place to kind of start. Obviously, change out skills. See here, put both pets in here. Both the one that reduces damage. And just note that if you put those on the bar, you need to have that pet on, say, 2 skills, not 1. Race Against Time is something that I don't have in here. I didn't really. On the Stamina DPS, we have Bound Armaments, increase number, dot, execute. You can swap out a self-heal. You can swap that one out. Dark Deal, so you can turn magic. And a Gap Closer. He does stun, so it's a bad skill to have far. And once again, a Major Fracture. And now remember, this is just a place to start. And then with stamina or with magic tanks, restraining, that's gonna immobilize. Streak is gonna stun. You're gonna down mines, angle, pulse, lay down additional mines to pop people up. You can also use time stop, and we'll have purge, major prophecy. Or major sorcery in order to as well as a self-heal, boundness, to resolve, dark conversion so that you can get magicka back, and it's against time so that you can stay in. And then with Sorks, we have Streak, we hold to bring you in, still using that Fighters Guild, Turn Evil for fear and stamina regen, Dark Deal to kind of bring those in. We're actually using retreating maneuvers because we're getting minor expedition from Hurricane, so actually use this to kind of reduce damage here. As far as the support goes, I just put both negates on here just because negate is such an asset to a fight that sometimes it's best to double bar it. But you can see here on stamina, so I put Fighters Guild ulti to increase defense numbers. And then we also have just the standard Bone Shards, Caltrops, Bombard for removal and heal. Guys, I'm gonna go away for just a few seconds here because I have to log in to the game so I can get in just in time for raid. But we're going to continue here with Templars and Wardens and the rest, and then and then also gear that I recommend. But I just gotta log in so I can get in the queue. So I'll be right back. Alright, we are at 21 queue. So let's go back to this. Wait, I should probably... Yeah, turn on an add-on. That's not gonna... I'll have to do it. We'll just keep checking that every now and then. Okay, so back to this. Oh wow, okay, so that thing was kind of messing up. That's all right, we'll try to fix that later. So yeah, with just disruptors, this is kind of like the bar that I would take a look at. And then with healers, sword healers I don't really recommend, but the pet summons by Light Mark Graveyard is a heal, and you can swap it out with 2 abilities, but still gonna have the standard heals. Definitely want to take a power surge. I would kind of avoid using Storm Balance because of the turn of magic and the fact that it lost its health and healer, so just kind of return itself. So, try to use negate. So with Templars, okay, let's see. Team. Templars, 8 with a sphere. Powering sweep, 1 is physical damage. Crescent sweep is magic damage. I don't know these. They are still skills to use. Biting jabs, definitely good for stamina. It's like attack. Yeah, cone attack, stam, physical damage, which is movement speed, and also gives you savagery. So that's a puncturing sweep, heals you and reduces speed. That one's good. Aurora Javelin, single target, but it does knock back and it does ignore resistances. With Binding Jab or Javelin, that's now a stamina ability, does stamina damage, stuns, and also resistances. So that's the ignoring of resistances, kind of out there, single targets that we should do. Gap closers. This is an AoE gap closer. I would recommend this if I was to recommend gap closers. Definitely only want to use this if you stand or besides stuff. With luminous spear shards, we have shards, damage, synergy, restores magic or stamina, whichever one of the users is higher, and blazing spear. If you're going to use this one, it's going to be stun. Radiant Ward. This is an AoE buff that gives you a damage shield, and blazing shield. Same thing. It's just that Radiant, the initial magic damage is up front, whereas shield is based on burst damage at the end, based on how much you absorbed. I don't really recommend this, but it is definitely something that explore. With Dawn's Wrath, Solar Prism. Let's see where. Solar Prism has a synergy, magic, damage, and stuns. It's the stun itself, definitely there, but the synergy is increased with Solar Prism. My major main lasts longer, Solar Disturbance, so that's why we only really tanks to really. Vampire's Bane and Reflective Light. Both are single target. They do they apply Major Prophecy, and while one snares, don't really recommend this. This is definitely DPS realm. But as far as skills that we do recommend, Dark Flare does have a cast time, but it applies Major Defile and also hits additional targets. You get that. It's definitely a skill I found myself spamming every now and then, but that Major Defile is definitely something unique, something to definitely, especially as a magic addict. Purifying Light and Power of Light. These are both great skills as far as like physical damage, applying, especially Power of Light, applying Minor Fracture and Minor Breach. I just don't really recommend these as they are single target. Living Dark is an excellent buff. Snares direct attacks. And Magic of Damage immobilizes, stuns, and hits additional targets. These are both great skills. I really would only recommend Dark though, because the snare direct attacks is great. Radiant Destruction is an execute that increases damage over time. It is single target, but the aspect of strength of its execute is kind of something that we highly recommend. Get back. And Remembrance. Every Templar, regardless, I'm giving Remembrance. Practicing Incantation gives you movability to disabling, or both of these give you disabling effects. Remembrance just gives you major protection, and the increased duration isn't always. But Breath of Life definitely hits more targets. Burst Heal, it is a burst heal. I kind of recommend it as a second one. It's definitely go-to. Ritual is a AoE burst heal from yourself. I kind of recommend Hasty Prayer, and it's gonna be. This may not become practice, but it's an AoE burst heal that it's one of those heals that kind of sets Templar apart. So penance returns health and stamina. Slotted in. The opposite gives you magic steal. It's actually, I think it's a little bit of health and stamina back. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's X more is best to use as like something like a bar to give you some solid passives. So, kind of use that here and there. It's not something. Extended Ritual. I kind of recommend this one over the Ritual Retribution. If you are going to use Ritual Retribution, do it if you Jikadama or yes, just seek them. And then we're going to kind of be using this skill on almost every roll that we have. Oop, we're at 1 right now. Okay. So we'll just explain this, and then we'll do, and then we'll for this. Extended so it removes negative effects. That's something that. And then Channeled Focus. It's an AoE. It's a buff. It's a group AoE, and it gives you Resolve. As a morph of it, and it's a stamina of it. One returns Magicka, and one returns stamina. So I kind of recommend those for any goal. Definitely a solid skill, especially since it's a group. So now we're gonna wait until we get into Cyrodiil. Wait here for a second, and then we'll go over the bars for Templars, and then we'll go through Warden. Then we'll briefly go through a lot of this kind of sets, instructions, and I will have to get into raid here in 15 minutes, in which case I will restart my stream with a delay, and we can kind of go over a lot of the sets and kind of stuff after the stream. This is taking a little bit longer than expected, so definitely have to keep that in kind of setting up. Because there's a lot to it. It has to be explained. Just to some of the stuff. So let's go ahead and jump down to bars. Now, as far as Magicka DPS, yeah, biting jabs and sweeps. It's not everybody's favorite skill, but usually are the a nice AoE. Magicka damage, and execute. I did end up putting balance on this bar just to increase Magicka damage numbers. Have our Oxy Dead. Combat Prayer to give us perk. Rituals to give effects rather than search, and shards, blazing shards, blazing spear for return resource, and for stamina, still having puncture, or instead of puncturing sweep, we got biting jabs because this is puncturing sweep. Javelin for a knockback and execute. Momentum, Vitality, Camouflage for Berserk, or Minor Berserk. Damage, Solar S, Self-Heal. I actually recommend this over. Just because it's a stamina based. Apply Major Fracture, Self-Purge, and a group. You can kind of see here that I have it's just because as a Templar you are it's kind of stressed that you definitely on the other side. So even as a stamina, being able to have that self heal is going to be a group heal is going to definitely use better skill multi to reach your numbers and stuff. But those are kind of as far as Magicka tank, we're going to be on the healer, but Hasty Prayer rather with a light. So, it's for health regen, shards to get sources to have to reduce health, trap, or a self purge, dark deal to purge, living dark. It's against time as far as like stamina tank, still back. Shards as got your here and again tends to ritual negative effects, AoE Sol, shards, caltrops fracture, self-heal, as well as disturbance. Then, as a healer, Templar healers, I recommend. Got a burst heal, gen. Which is shards to get resources, purge to it's another so synergy base against time. Then we have wardens. I don't really recommend the animal or pets as ultis just because they take up 2 spots. Pet up, you gotta have bars. So in that, there is a definite Magicka stamina differences. So if you use them, I recommend Guardian for stamina and Eternal Guard. With dive, cutting dive, and streaming tracer, these also have the stamina. So, different slantings. I don't really recommend these. I do use cutting dive and single target. There are other single targets, but also other skills with that Subtraining Assault is an A burst damage that also applies Major Fracture, as well as Deep Fissure is an A damage that applies Reach. We're going to be trying to. These I do like. If you're going to use any skill, for the Warden line, try to keep these unless you're a healer. Swarm is an excellent dot, but it's still single target, and even though the Stam version does hit additional targets, most times not, that dots will be used. Really get to see the so we don't really recommend the skill. The Blue Betties and Bowl Match. One returns stamina and one returns magicka. I'd highly recommend these because of the buffs of Major Mortality, Sorcerer. Negative effects, so that is created. Falcon Swift. I don't really recommend Deceptive Predator. Sources of Major Expedition and Invasion that you get. I do recommend Bird of Prey because while slotted, it will give you Zerg as well as Major Expedition. So any DPS, definitely. Green Balance. Just make sure that stuff here. Green Balance, Enchanted Forest, and Trinket. Can recommend both of these. Trinket is definitely healer time, but the return ultimate Enchanted Forest can definitely kind of recommend. Fungal Growth, Enchanted Growth gives you my endurance. It's a cone heal. Definitely recommend better run that. And Smooth Sores is a stamina heal, one of only 2 in the game. So I would recommend Corrupted Pollen. I do not recommend this. I recommend this more because of it's an 8. Well, it's ranged. It's a burst heal at the end, and it also has a synergy. Major Defile is the recommends, and you'll put that this on this build. It's because it's and the effects are major. Leeching Vines buff to heal. I don't really recommend. It's definitely can be used, but if you're going to use it, you're probably healer for yourself. So just looking to get my steal. Green Lotus and Green Lotus Blossom. I do kind of recommend these, but I don't really use them in any. There are other sources of Major Sorcery and Prophecy that you get. Major Savagery, and it also your light attacks. I don't really recommend this, but they are definitely will increase your crit numbers. Burst Vines, Nature Embrace, single target gap close. It does heal, and one can base gap close from ally. But as far as heals, there are Winter's Embrace. Both North Storm and Permafrost are great. I really highly gonna push Permafrost. Winter Storm, if you're going to you don't. It's because it's magic. Sure. It's open, but the chance to chill or to apply a chilled status. And the increased snares, Frost, Ice Fortress, are buff that applies definitely one. Dripping Shards. It's like that. This is major. Revenge. Recommend. Dripping that. That's it. It's Arctic Blast. It's a buff. It's does frost damage. It's to stun. So we can. Crystal Slab and Shimmering Shard. I don't really recommend this. Storage. Frost damage, and the other gives you. So it's your multi-king. These are all great. It's just there are other things that we can kind of set that skill. Frozen Device. It's an AoE. It sets up traps and mobilizes them. It's a 2U. Applies major main. We kind of recommend Frozen Device on this one, as it just lets you have more gates, and there's the other one gives a synergy from allied come to you. The applications of that just don't seem as important. So you can kind of see here with yes. Over here, we have Subterranean or Deep Fissure. Yes, with Forest Pulse, Bird of Prey. Bar we have Self Heal, Resolve, Oxy Debt, Blue Betty, Permafrost. On the back bar, Ice Comet on the front to increase our stamina DPS, where you use Training Assault, Eve, Execute, Reverse Flash, Blue Betty, Bullnudge, Bird of Prey, and then on the back bar we have a Stam Heal, Fracture, Group, Frost, and Stam, Fire Skill, multi-2. And then for Magicka tanks, we still have Corrupted Pollen, we have gates to pull people in. Shards, technical people. We're still using some Deep Fissure. We're doing this more to apply major breach than damage. Betty Netch also purges. So that's a good source of. And then Enchanted Growth, Self Heal, Arctic Blast as a heal. Purge, major group buff, it's time. We do have heal. As far as the back bar, it's always good to have as a quick heal, especially since your multi-gen is usually. And then with a healer, we have Enchanted Growth. Or Rapid Regen, Arctic Blast as another. Enchanted Growth as a first heal, or as a multi-heal. Blue Netty, Corrupted Pollen, Purge, Fortress, Permafrost. The Stam tank, we're still using Subterranean. We're using the Stamina Pull, Silver Leash instead of the gates. Turn Evil as a Air, Bullnetch, Stamina, Corrupted File, and then all the classics, Bone Shard, your AoE, Major Resolve, Major Fracture, Sorcerer, Self. That being said, I think we're going to be jumping into the raid right now, so I'm going to be restarting my stream. Let's see. Yeah. So. But yeah. As far as other recommendations go, we're just going to kind of go through this really quick, just because this is some stuff I've kind of already covered. These are kind of recommendations for stuff. As far as builds go, it's kind of a formula. Resources, effects, proc sets. Really recommend a resource plus an effect, or a resource plus a proc set. Resources plus a resource set are really good for and effects plus procs are kind of limited, and I don't really recommend it's with sets. So these are kind of a list of foods that I would recommend. This is kind of how I would recommend setting up your armor. These are enchants. I understand that they're going to be introducing more impen, so with that being said, yeah, man, and to be honest with you, man, like I'm trying to, you shouldn't even, you should have lost voice version. So. All right, guys, but I will be back. Yeah, man, I need to. But I'll see you guys back in a little bit. As far as other sets go, just go ahead and here are sets for healers. Let's get this on. Here are mag DPS. Here are stam DPS. Here are tanks. More tanks. Monster helms. More monster helms. But I will be back, guys, and we will, yeah. Guys, later.